All right, welcome back. Today is part 18 of our practice question series. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, thank you for coming back. Everybody, though, should be studying hard, learning those terms, learning those definitions, and then practice applying them to questions. And that is the key to passing your RBT exam. Okay, so please like and subscribe if you do like these videos. That supports me. If you need our study materials, please check out our website or one of these links, which I'll put in the comments and descriptions below. I just added a RBT competency study guide, so check that out. Other than that, let's just get into it. All right, math homework is aversive to your client. When he is presented with homework, he will attempt to hide under the table. Your BCBA determined the function was escape. Given this information, the most appropriate reaction to your client withdrawing under the table is what? So this is a function question. Remember, behavior happens for a reason. There are four functions. What are the four functions? Attention, tangible, escape, automatic. You need to know those. Make sure you memorize those. If you can't answer that question immediately, question of what are the functions, okay, you need to go and study those right now, okay? Because it's, as an RBT, as I've said before, whenever you're with a client and behavior happens, the first question your BCBA or supervisor will ask is, what is the function, okay? So in this case, we know the function. The function is escape. So the behavior is happening to escape something, right? In this case, homework. So we know it's escape. So what is our best reaction? Should we A, remove the task demand? Well, if we remove the task demand, what are we doing? We're giving the behavior what it desires, right? We're reinforcing the behavior. The client wants to escape. If we remove the task demand, the client escapes. Therefore, what? We reinforce, okay? So we don't want to do A. B, restrain your client to the chair so he can't escape. No, we're not going to use restraint, okay? Restraint holds a very particular and special place in education and ABA in general, okay? There's a lot of governance around restraint, and the general rule is you shouldn't use it unless explicitly trained and directed by your supervisor, okay? So B is out. C, follow through with the task demand. Yes, right? If the function of this behavior is escape, okay, how do we not reinforce that behavior? Well, we have to follow through with the task. If we don't allow the client to escape, okay, then the behavior doesn't achieve what it sets out to achieve, right? And that's the basic idea behind identifying these functions of behavior. When we identify the functions of behavior, it makes it much easier to treat, okay? If my function of behavior is attention, well, we can reinforce that behavior by what? By giving it attention. If the function is attention, well, we can put it on extinction by what? By withholding attention. The function makes it much easier, okay, to do our jobs. And then finally, D, give your client a skill in exchange for coming back to the table. No, this is bribery. If your client is in the middle of a behavior, right, a maladaptive behavior, a behavior cluster, we should never bribe them to come out of it and return to work. Okay, so the answer is C. Follow through with the task demand. You swore to yourself that you would give up desserts for a week. When you went grocery shopping on Sunday, you didn't buy any cookies or sweets. Tuesday morning, when you get to work, you see a box of donuts on the table. You can't resist the chocolate donut and end up eating 2 of them. The box of donut represents what? All right, so you're on a diet, you gave up desserts, okay? You might want the desserts, but in order to eliminate that reinforcer, you don't buy any at the store, okay? So there are no reinforcers or sweets at your house. But when you get to the office, what do you see? Oh, you see a bunch of reinforcers, okay? So is that box of donuts an MO, an SD, a contingency, or negative reinforcement? Well, they're not negative reinforcement, okay? We know that. They're not a contingency. There's no if then going on, right? You just saw the donuts and you ate some donuts, right? So your behavior was what, right? You see the donuts, okay, you eat them. What was the box of donuts? Was it an MO or an SD? So the question you asked yourself was, did that box of donuts increase the value of those donuts? Did it make you want the donuts? Or did that box of donuts signal that the donuts were available? Did it say that it was available? Well, in this case, the box of donuts signaled to you that reinforcement was available, okay, and therefore you ate the donuts. The motivation for those donuts is already there at your house, okay? You eliminated the temptation, right, by not buying sweets, but you still might want them, right? When you get to work, though, you see the SD, that box of donuts, and you can't resist, and therefore you eat the donuts. So that box of donuts is an SD. If you don't understand that question, go over it a few times until you do, okay? It's a good fundamental understanding of MOs and SDs, okay? Those are our fundamentals, right? MOs, SDs, reinforcement, punishment, okay? And extinction. Those are our bread and butter. You have to understand those, okay? During circle time, your client continually stomps their feet on the ground. Before your next session, you put a block under their chair that acts as a footrest. Now you reinforce your client when their feet are on the block and put the stomping on extinction. What kind of procedure does this best represent? Okay, so immediately you know it's differential reinforcement. How do you know it's differential reinforcement? Well, you're reinforcing one behavior and putting other things on extinction. It's differential reinforcement. So the question becomes, what type of differential reinforcement is it? Is it DRA, DRI, DRO, or DRL? Well, are we looking for lower rates of a behavior, or are we trying to eliminate a behavior? Well, we're trying to eliminate it, right? So therefore D is out. We're not looking for lower rates. Are we looking for just the absence of behavior? Are we reinforcing the absence, okay? Or are we also teaching a replacement behavior? Well, we're teaching this replacement behavior of feet on the block, right? So DRO is out. Remember, DRO reinforces in the absence of a behavior, and it doesn't teach a replacement behavior, okay? So that leaves us with DRA and DRI. So are we reinforcing an alternative behavior that can occur simultaneously with the behavior we're putting on extinction? Or are we reinforcing an incompatible behavior with the behavior we're putting on extinction? Well, can they put their feet on the block and stomp on the floor at the same time? No, right? So therefore, we are reinforcing an incompatible behavior with stomping on the ground, okay? So the answer is DRI. You are exhausted from a long week of work. You tell yourself that tomorrow you aren't going to do anything but lay on the couch and relax. Your friends always go downtown Saturday night, but you just aren't up for it. An hour later, you receive a text from the person you've been talking to asking if you're going downtown. You say, "Of course I am." The text from the person you are talking to represents a blank for going out. Is this an MO, an SD, a reinforcer, or a consequence? Well, reinforcer and consequence are the same thing, right? A reinforcer is a consequence, okay? So we can eliminate those, and either way, the text, right, is not a consequence, right? It's an antecedent. It's coming before your behavior, okay? So the question becomes, is this an MO or an SD? Well, does the text increase the value of going out? Does it make you want to go out? Or does it signal that going out is available? Remember, MOs make you want, SD signals it's available. Well, it's always available because your friends always go downtown Saturday night. So you can go out regardless of if they text you or not. That text, what it does is it increases the value of going out because now you can see this person. Therefore, it is a what? A motivating operation. You're teaching your client to ride a bike. You start with a tricycle and reinforce them for pedaling. You then move to a two-wheel balance bike and reinforce them for balancing. You finally put them on a two-wheel bike with pedals and reinforce them for riding by themselves. What best represents this procedure? Is this a task chain, a task analysis, shaping, or deprivation? Well, we know it's not deprivation, right? Because we're not depriving them of anything. We're not withholding anything. Is it a task chain? Well, don't get confused here, right? We're teaching steps, right? You know, kind of. But are we teaching individual steps to a larger chain? Or are we trying to teach one ultimate behavior? Or we're trying to teach one ultimate behavior, which is riding a bike, okay? So we're not really chaining this together, okay? We're teaching what? We're teaching approximations, hint, hint, of riding a bike, okay? So is it a task analysis? Well, no, because it's not a task chain, so we're not performing a task analysis. Therefore, it has to be what? Shaping. What is shaping? Shaping is reinforcing approximations of a penultimate behavior, right? The behavior that you want to see at the very end, you slowly reinforce, okay, better and better approximations of that behavior, right? As your client or whoever slowly exhibits more and more of that behavior, you reinforce as they get closer. In this case, you go from a tricycle to a two-wheel balance bike to an actual bike, and you have taught your client to ride a bike through shaping. Your company received a brand new client and you are assigned to the case. Your BCBA requests that you take baseline data during your first session. Baseline data is best represented by what? All right, easy question. If you've been studying, okay, if you've been doing your study guide, what is baseline data? That's what this question is asking. Okay, so what is it? Is it data that represents behavior after reinforcement, data that represents behavior after punishment, data that represents behavior before intervention, or data that represents behavior before you meet the client? Well, we know baseline data comes before. That's what makes it baseline, okay? So we're not taking data on the behavior after it's already been reinforced or punished. Because at that point, the behavior may have changed, okay? We want pre-change behavior. That's what baseline data is, right? So baseline data represents behavior before intervention starts, okay? Because it can't be D. I mean, you have to meet your client to take baseline data, right? So baseline data is simply data you collect before intervention starts. What does the behavior look like? What does the skill look like before we do any sort of intervening or intervention, okay? That is baseline data. That will guide the rest of our treatment. A collection of responses or skills that a client possesses that are relevant to a particular situation are called a client's what? Ability, repertoire, talent, or behavior. So this is a very specific word, okay, that we use quite a bit in ABA, okay? And that is what? Well, it's not ability, it's not talent, okay, because we don't really measure those. You can't really measure talent, okay? We can't observe ability, okay? Remember, we're still ABAing here, right? So A and C are out. It's not a behavior, right? Because this is a collection of responses or skills relevant to this particular situation, okay? And the best answer here is, okay, because you might want to say behavior, but the best answer here is what? Repertoire. And if you've never heard that word, a repertoire is just a set of skills, essentially, or a set of things, okay? So if, we take Michael Jordan, he has an extensive basketball repertoire, right? He has a ton of repertoire, or a ton of skills, okay, that make up his repertoire, okay? Now, if we're talking about, let's say, self-stimulatory behavior, okay, stimming, we sometimes refer to the repertoire of stems, right? Because the client might cycle through the different stems they have, okay? So a repertoire is just a collection of those responses or skills, okay, relevant to a particular situation. If you never heard that word, it's okay, all right? Don't panic. It's a very easy concept, right? It's just a set or collection of something a client possesses, okay? Super easy. Don't get nervous about this word, okay? When you see this question, you'll know the answer, I guarantee you. You drive to your local grocery store to do some shopping. As you are walking in, you see a sign that says, "Mask required. Violators will be forced to leave. Put on your mask." The sign is what? Is it an MO? Is it an SD for reinforcement, an SD for punishment, or a consequence? Okay. Well, does the sign alter the value of the mask? Not really, right? It doesn't really alter the value of that reinforcer, right? So not really an MO, okay? So what is it, okay? What is that sign signaling, okay? The sign is signaling punishment, right? It's an SD for punishment. You see the sign. If you don't put on the mask, what's going to happen? Well, you're going to be, quote unquote, put in timeout, okay? You're not wearing a mask, you go to timeout, okay? It's the same as you see a cop car, right? And you slow down, okay? So the sign is signaling punishment. Now, this is a little more high level, I think, than you might need to know, okay? But I'm trying to make the point that the SD signals these things, okay? It signals to you that reinforcement's available, that punishment is available, okay? With MOs, we're altering the value of something, okay? The value of these masks don't really get altered, right? By putting on the mask, what are you trying to do? You're trying to escape punishment that was signaled by the sign, okay? Tough question. Don't worry about it too much, right? But I just want to drive home really in this set of questions, MOs and SDs, okay? Because they give people trouble, and I don't think they should, okay? So we did a bunch of MO SD questions just to really drive home the point of what those things represent, okay? All right, which two data points best represent an increasing trend? So most common type of graph in ABA is a line graph, right? This is a line graph. And our question is asking what two data points best represent an increasing trend. So they're basically asking what two connected data points show an increasing trend. It should be an easy question, right? When we're doing visual analysis, we're looking at trend, we're looking at variability, we're looking at level. And what is trend, right? Trend is just the increasing or decreasing of data on a data path, right? So 1 and 2. Well, 1 to 2, the data is what? Flat, okay? 2 to 3, the data is what? Flat. 4 to 5, what is the data doing? It's increasing in trend, good. 5 to 6, data is decreasing in trend. So the obvious answer here is 4 and 5. Graphing questions, piece of cake, okay? I do a lot of graphing questions throughout this practice question series, okay? So go through the other videos. But you shouldn't be intimidated by graphing questions. Super easy. Know the y-axis, know the x-axis, and know what a line graph looks like and what it is, and you'll be fine. You're working on fine motor skills with your client. Today, your client is learning to use scissors. You start by guiding your client's hand through the paper. You then lightly tap your client's elbow to start them cutting. You then hand your client the scissors and paper and make a cutting motion with your hand. What type of prompting does this represent? All right, so think about it. What was your first prompt? What kind of prompt followed that? What kind of prompt followed that? Well, you start by guiding your client's hand, right? So what are you doing? You're physically prompting them, okay, full physical. You then lightly tap your client's elbows. So what are you doing? Partial physical. You then hand your client the scissors and paper and make a cutting motion. What are you doing? Modeling, okay? So what type of prompting does this represent? Is it least to most, most to least, graduated guidance, or inappropriate prompting? Well, it's not inappropriate, okay? It's a good prompting hierarchy, right? I don't see anything wrong with it. Graduated guidance. Graduated guidance refers to physical prompting alone, okay? And using the appropriate amount of physical prompting and then fading it as needed, okay? But in this scenario, we have types of prompts that aren't physical prompts, and therefore graduated guidance doesn't apply. So we have least to most and most to least. And like we just went over, did we start with the most intrusive prompt or the least intrusive? Well, we clearly started with the most intrusive by starting with full physical, and then we worked towards the least. That makes this most to least prompting. All right, hope you enjoyed. Like I said, keep studying hard. I've got more videos coming Friday, this weekend, and next week. Any questions, as always, leave me a comment or email me. I'd love to help. Get our study materials, visit the website, visit the links. I think those will be really beneficial to you. Like and subscribe. As always, study hard, and I will see you soon.